Good morning to you and welcome to Penn Vicarage on this Friday morning. Great to see you. Thank you for joining us for our reflection for today, and I hope you are well and cheerful. May I remind you this weekend, it's Friday, we have some great services on at St Bart's and St Anne's, and a special treat for you this week. If you can wrap up warm on Sunday night at 5:30, we're going to be carol singing on the green outside St Bart's. So if you say wrap up warm, you're very welcome to come and join us. We'll provide the carol sheets, we'll provide the music, you bring your voice, and we'll have a lovely community event together. So this Sunday evening, 5:30, we'd love to see you, but of course all the services are great and you can find them all on the website, stbarts.org.uk. But Exodus and chapter 33, here goes. The Lord said to Moses, "Go, leave this place, you and the people whom you brought up out of the land of Egypt, and go to the land to which I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, to your descendants I will give it. I will send an angel before you, and I will drive out the Canaanites, the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Go up to a land flowing with milk and honey, but I will not go up among you, or I will consume you on the way, for you are a stiff-necked people." When the people heard these harsh words, they mourned, and no one put on ornaments. For the Lord had said to Moses, "Say to the Israelites, you are a stiff-necked people. For if for a single moment I should go among you, I would consume you. So now take off your ornaments, and I will decide what to do to you." Therefore the Israelites stripped themselves of their ornaments from Mount Horeb onward. Now Moses used to take the tent and pitch it outside the camp, far off from the camp. He called it the tent of meeting, and everyone who sought the Lord would go out to the tent of meeting, which was outside the camp. Whenever Moses went out to the tent, all the people would rise and stand, each of them at the entrance of their tents, and watch Moses until he got into the tent. When Moses entered the tent, the pillar of cloud would descend and stand at the entrance of the tent, and the Lord would speak with Moses. When all the people saw the pillar of cloud standing at the entrance of the tent, all the people would rise and bow down, all of them at the entrance of their tent. Thus the Lord used to speak to Moses face to face, as one speaks to a friend. Then he would return to the camp, but his young assistant Joshua, son of Nun, would not leave the tent. Moses said to the Lord, "See, you have said to me, bring up this people, but you will not have me let you know who I will send you." Beg your pardon. "Bring up this people, but you have not let me know whom you will send with me. Yet you have said, I know you by name, and you have also found favor in my sight. Now, if I found favor in your sight, show me your ways, so that I may know you and find favor in your sight. Consider too that this nation is your people." He said, "My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest." And he said to him, "If your presence will not go, do not carry us up from here. But how shall it be known that I found favor in your sight, I and your people, unless you go with us? In this way we shall be distinct, I and your people, from every people on the face of the earth." The Lord said to Moses, I will do the very thing that you have asked, for you have found favor in my sight, and I know you by name." Moses said, "Show me your glory, I pray." And he said, "I will make all my goodness pass before you, and will proclaim before you the name, the Lord, and I will be gracious to whom I'll be gracious, and I will show mercy on whom I will show mercy." But he said, "You cannot see my face, for no one can see me and live." And the Lord continued, "See, there's a place by me where you shall stand on a rock. While my glory passes by, I'll put you in the cleft of the rock, and I will cover you with my hand until I pass by. Then I will take away my hand, and you shall see my back, but my face shall not be seen." And this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Okay, we're following on from the golden calf debacle from yesterday in chapter 32, when the people have gone well astray, and Moses has been away for a few days, so they've made their own gods and worshipped that instead, and it's all been a pretty sorry period, really. So after all that, in the first few verses of this chapter, God kind of reminds Moses, who you are, what I've done for you. I've rescued you from Egypt, and your purpose is you are not to remain here in the desert for a long time. Your purpose is to go into the promised land, a land flowing with milk and honey, and so on. So in a sense, after all the kind of debacle and the trouble from yesterday, and all the death and all the stuff that happened yesterday, and the disobedience, and so on, and so on, and so on, God kind of reminds Moses what they're there for. And I think we all need sometimes to be reminded what we're about, actually. I think sometimes as the church, we can be distracted by all sorts of things. I think there's a huge problem with that at the moment, in my personal opinion, that we've got horrendously distracted, and we need to get back on track again. Really, our purpose is to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ to the people. We've got, in my opinion, severely distracted by other things at the moment. But in a sense, God kind of reminds the people, reminds Moses that that they are his people, and that he rescued them from Egypt, and that their purpose is to move on to a land of milk and honey, the promised land. And I think in a sense also, it kind of reminds them also that where they are now is not their permanent home. Where they are now is a temporary thing, but their proper home, if you like, is in the promised land, the land which has been promised to them. And I suppose in a sense, again, I think that kind of reminds us too, really, that our home is actually in heaven. That where we are now is not our eventual destination. As Christians, our hope and our final home is with God. So after all that happened yesterday, God reminds them who they're about and where they're going, and reminds them that their proper home is not now. Their proper home is in the promised land. And reminding us really that we need to get, I think, back on track again. And I think also we need to remember that this where we are now is not our eventual destination. Our eventual destination is in heaven. And then God speaks to them some words which ultimately make them very sad. He tells them, look, he's basically the upshot of yesterday's reading in chapter 32, is that these people really, they're God's people, but they're just not very good at it, and they're not to be trusted really, because they become faithless very quickly. And so he says, I've been amongst you in the past, but I'm not going to live among you anymore, because you're a stiff-necked people, basically. And if I do, something else is going to happen between now and the promised land, and you're just not going to make it, because I'm going to, in a sense, you're going to overstep the mark again, and there's going to be trouble. I'll probably blow you away, kind of thing. So what God says is that I can't stay amongst you in quite the way that I did. I will be with you, but I'll stay outside the camp. I'll keep a degree of distance. And in a sense, it makes them very sad. And for the second time in a couple of chapters, they don't wear ornaments again. And they're saddened by it. But actually, in a sense, it is an act of kindness that God is so holy. And they're so prone to disobedience. And so quickly, this is a matter of 10 months after they'd left Egypt. God had rescued them from Egypt. They've already complained about the food. They complained about the water. They've gone on to other gods. You name it. They're just not very good at it. And so God says, look, I will be with you, but I'm going to have to keep a distance, because if I stay amongst you, I don't think you're going to make it to the promised land. So that's what God does. God is with them, but he keeps a degree of distance. But it's for their sake as much as anything else. But how are they to know God with them? Well, in a sense, what happens now is that Moses now sets up the tent of meeting. It's called a place where he meets God, and he sets it up, within eyeshot, but outside the camp. And notice that Joshua, I think, is a bit. Yes, always probably like a permanent church warden. He kind of lives there, but Moses comes in there and out. But what is lovely here is the kind of sign of the cloud, which is a sign for the close presence of God. So whenever in the Bible you see cloud, so you've got things like Jesus is being transfigured and so on, the cloud is always code for the close presence of God. But there's a lovely picture here that where God and Moses are friends. Where they go into Moses goes into the tent and very much like there's a friendship, and the language used here is very, very warm. There's lovely that Moses speaks to God a bit like he speaks to a friend. And isn't it a great honor for us that in this chapter we have the holiness of God, and yet we have God being friends of a person. And there's a lovely kind of the fancy word as juxtaposition, is that the word? It's a good word anyway, isn't it? The kind of between the holiness of God and the fact God's our friend, the transcendence of the woe of God combined with the friendship of God. And to kind of show this again, at the end of the chapter, Moses asks for a sign, so some kind of encouragement. And we all need signs sometimes to remind us of God's presence. And the God who is Moses' friend in the tent, Moses asks to see God's glory. But notice he can only sort of see it round a corner behind a rock. And only God holds his hand up, and all he can see is God's back, because God is so holy that no one can see God and live. So again, look at this lovely picture here of God's amazing holiness, so holy that no one can see his face. so holy that, Moses, maybe even Moses has to hide around a corner. Moses can only see his back because no one can see the face of God. And yet, Moses meets with God daily or regularly in this tent. And he talks to God a bit like he talks to a friend. So lots in this chapter. Bear in mind that the context is that, of course, it's after yesterday's debacle with the adultery and the golden calf. You've got God reminding them what they're about, and I think we as a church need to be reminded also what we are all about and our proper focus. He reminds them that Sinai, the desert, is not their permanent home. Their home is in the promised land, and our hope is in heaven too. That God keeps a bit of distance, not as actually as a kindness, because he's worked out that they're a pretty disobedient lot, and we best keep a bit of distance just in case. So that there's a different relationship then. And then at the end, you've got this wonderful thing of the holiness of God, where Moses can only see God but round a corner, and only see his back and his sort of hand up, because that's the holiness of God. But at the same time, you've got Moses being able to go into this tent and meet with God like he meets together with a friend. So this lovely picture of the wowness of God, the holiness of God, combined with the loveliness, the close presence, the intimacy of God as well. So my friends, lots to think about in chapter 33. It's Friday. Have a lovely weekend. As I say, we'd love to join you at church, or come sing carols with us on Sunday night or whatever. We'd love to see you. God bless you. Thank you for watching. Have a lovely weekend. Do please share this message with your friends.